Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis, and thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8 Weather Impact Update. While we are still looking at weather impact alert days, so we had it today. The peak of the heat was today. By tomorrow, still holding on to some of that warmth. It's just not anticipated to be as hot as it was earlier today, but still pretty toasty. You have heat alerts that are still in effect with the heat advisory for the coast and metro cities. That's with those 80s and 90s still holding on to that range for tomorrow. Even some 70s will be sprinkled in as well. You have the extreme heat warning from the inland valleys all the way to the desert, up into the 1 teens for the desert. Also, we've had some 90s going strong for the mountains and still the mid 90s to around 102. That would be for the inland valleys. Today, this was the heat. You had 100 degrees. That was for Escondido as well as for Ramona. 101 for Valley Center. We had 81 degrees for downtown and the same for Oceanside. 90s dominated the mountains and 112 degrees today for Borrego Springs as well as triple-digit heat for Campo. So we're backing away from this only slightly by tomorrow, but also still talking about those warmer than usual temperatures by about 5 to 10 degrees for your overnight lows. We have some of those low 70s popping up right there along the North County coastline, as well as for Escondido and for Miramar and El Cajon. 70s across the mountains. You have to keep in mind that these are the temperatures you're going to feel first thing tomorrow morning, so that's right there before our sunrise, which is at 5:51. These are the temperatures you feel around that time, so we're looking at a pretty warm night ahead of us, and then we get right back to some heat for tomorrow. That brings us into those widespread 90s, even seeing some of those 80s popping up, but a lot of those 90s popping up across the inland valleys and also seeing that extend into the mountains for tomorrow. 92 degrees for Valley Center, 90 degrees, so about a 10-degree drop roughly, and that will be for Escondido. 90 degrees expected for tomorrow, 94 for Ramona. You also have 80 degrees for Del Mar as well as 76 degrees for downtown. So still holding on to some warmth out there, and then things start to cool as we go into the weekend, and it gets us right back into that near seasonal range, but we are also going to be talking about an increase in humidity. Now, we did have more of an influx in humidity yesterday. That's why we saw those thunderheads that were building right there across the mountains. This is the view from Mount Laguna. We did have a few of those cumulus clouds, but we're losing the heating of the day, so that's why you're only seeing a few lone ones out there, but you're also seeing smoke in the distance, and that is from the fire that is burning in Boulevard. So the Thorn Fire broke out this afternoon, and that produced a whole lot of smoke. Winds were coming out of the southwest, pushing that towards the northeast. It also jumped the 8, and so the 8 was closed. You should go to our website, cbs8.com, also with the app, and we will continue to keep you updated and posted on when it will open, also evacuation zones as well. And so that's been a big talker because a lot of that smoke has been seen across the county. So more towards the south, impacting Live Oak Springs as well as Boulevard. But we also had those strong gusty winds earlier that had those gusts into the 30s and even upwards of about 35 miles per hour for wind gusts, sustained wind speeds into the teens and 20s. That has been a big component when it's come to this fire for today. Also talking about the heat, and we did have some drier conditions than recently, and we have been dealing with an increase in monsoonal moisture, but today, because that high pressure system got closer towards us, that actually cut off some of that moisture. So we've had humidity values across the inland valleys into the 20s as well as for the 30s, extending into the mountains as well. So not as humid as it has been recently, but closer towards the coast. It's been a different story. You still have that marine influence, and that's been coupled with the heat. So we are looking at an increase in that by tomorrow. We've had some gusty winds, as I mentioned, and then we have those calmer winds that will be in the overnight hours. And so if you do smell smoke and you're in the area, you are advised to limit outdoor activity. You are advised to also close windows. Make sure that you can wear a mask, especially if you suffer from upper respiratory issues, because those fine particulates, those PM 2.5s, those can easily get into your lungs, and that would cause health concerns, especially if you already suffer from upper respiratory issues. So limit outdoor activity because of this. And some of that smoke could also settle a little bit more, and other areas could smell it, especially once we get into those overnight hours where winds are calmer. So for today, we had those cumulus clouds, not as big. They were building right there across the mountains. Didn't see too much of that rainfall. Most of that moisture stayed just towards the south of us. So as I mentioned, we were kind of cut off from it, and so we had the trifecta today. You had the 90s for daytime highs in Boulevard. You also, or for temperatures in Boulevard, daytime high around that 90-degree mark. And then you also had the gusty winds, and you had the drier air. And that was because this area of high pressure that moved in, and two areas of high pressure, in fact, are creating this big heat dome that much of the country has been experiencing, and that includes us here at home home where we've had the heat alerts that have been in effect. Continuing into tomorrow, but here's the catch. That area of high pressure drifts a little bit closer towards the Four Corners. That opens the door for monsoonal moisture. So we have a little bit more of an influx in our forecast. That's going to be from Thursday all the way into Sunday. We're all going to feel it, but the more favorable location when it does come to any chances for wet weather, for spotty showers, even for some thunderstorms, will be right there across the mountains in the desert during the afternoon and early evening hours. Once we get past our sunset, roughly around 7:58, that's when the activity starts to die down a little bit because you lose the heating of the day. You need that heat when it comes to monsoonal moisture to see that instability and some of that activity. So that area of high pressure is going to stay pretty close to that region across the Four Corners, near the Four Corners, all the way into the weekend. So that's why we're still holding on to a surge of monsoonal moisture all the way into Sunday, and the slight chance that we could see some of those showers and thunderstorms, isolated activity popping right there across the mountains, popping up across the mountains. So just be mindful of that over the next few days. You're not going to see any raindrops in your extended forecast. That's because chances are relatively low. If they were higher, then you would see that and then potentially also be dealing with weather impact alert days, but that's not the case with that. Just something to be mindful of. When we look at other alerts still in effect, we have the beach hazard statement that will expire at midnight tonight, and that's with the elevated surf about 3 to 5 feet, strong rip currents still being present, and that pull from the new moon phase that took place on Tuesday. So we still have the high tide for tonight, upwards of about 7 feet, but it does start to subside, and that's going to be by Thursday evening. So that minor tidal overflow, still that potential being there for late tonight, and then we're going to see less of that coverage as we go into the forecast over the next couple of evenings, because that high tide is going to not have that strong gravitational hold. When we look at your extended forecast for the next 7 days for the coast as well as for the inland valleys, you have a weather impact alert day. That's for tomorrow because we still have the heat alert going. Mid-90s for daytime highs, then we get back into the 80s, something a little bit more seasonal for this time of the year, and also looking at the 70s returning for the coast. But then you can see by next week, temperatures start to warm up again in response to another area of high pressure that will have a strong hold on us for next week. You have the 90s for the mountains, going right back into widespread 80s for the weekend. As mentioned, the increase in that monsoonal moisture offering up that slight chance we could see some activity across the mountains when it comes to showers and thunderstorms, isolated, but overall it's going to be pretty slim chances of seeing any of that activity develop, but we definitely will see some of those upper level clouds. You also have 108 tomorrow for the desert, and then we're getting right back into temperatures that'll be about 103 to wrap up the work week, but temperatures are going to be hovering around that near seasonal range all the way into the start and also middle of next week, and that will be for the desert. Please be safe out there. If you want more information on the Thorn Fire that is burning in Boulevard, as I mentioned, go to our website, cbs8.com, with all the details. We have stories, coverage. We're going to continue to keep you posted until we start to see containment going up even more. Unfortunately, as of this evening, it's at 0%.